In this video, we're going to watch a conversation that I had with Peter Zotto, who is a startup founder who sold his last company, ProfitWell, for over $200 million. Today, we'll talk about what was his experience working with Publicative on his LinkedIn content in the first 3 weeks of us working together. What are some of the tips that he would give to other startup founders who are looking to outsource their LinkedIn content to a ghostwriter or a content agency, as well as what are some of the caveats that people should be looking at in order to make sure that they're getting the right person to manage their personal brand. Let's jump in. We're literally 19 days in and we got you 125,000 organic impressions. That's like 1,200% growth over the last 3 weeks, let's say, with almost 1,500 social impressions and over 1,300 link clicks and 540 new followers. So in your own words, where was your LinkedIn before we started versus where it is now 3 weeks into working with us?
I think my LinkedIn before we started was I'd probably label it as sporadic or inconsistent at best. I had somewhat of a, let's call it, presence on LinkedIn, largely driven by a prior reputation I had in building a company called ProfitWell. And when I posted, I would probably average, the only thing that I really looked at, because I wasn't smart enough before working with you, was effectively things like the number of likes that I got and how many comments, right? And so I'd probably, I don't know what the actual number was, but my sense, anecdotally speaking, is I'd probably average anywhere from 15 to 40 likes or call it engagements on a post. Every once in a while, I would have a post that went, got 80 to 100, maybe a few more. But more often than not, I was getting significantly less than that. I wasn't doing it consistently. It wasn't driving any action from a business perspective. If anything, it was probably just vanity metrics for my own personality, which is fine, but that doesn't put food on the table, so to speak, and it doesn't pay any bills. So that's sort of the before picture, if you will. The thing that I care about is ultimately, like, is it driving some point of outcome for us? And that is, we don't have a product that we're selling today. We have a product that we're driving waitlist signups for. And we were averaging probably 1 to 3 signups a day. The first 3 weeks, I think we're now at, I have to do quick math, over 135. We went from 1 to 2 a day to almost 7 a day. That's a massive step up for us in 3 weeks. And now we have a foundation that we can continue to build on that makes me incredibly happy. So these numbers matter that you're showing on your screen, like the impressions, link clicks, followers, but those things are a means to an end. And the end to me is, are you signing up for our product? Are you visiting our landing page and then signing up for our waitlist? Like, that's kind of it. And those are the things that are happening at a much higher degree than they were prior to working with you.
I think that's a fantastic start because at the end of the day, if you have a product where you already can get revenue from customers, you're gonna care about the new ARR that you're getting. In your case, you're looking for waitlist signups for the product that you haven't launched yet. And so far, we managed to get you over 130 signups in the first 3 weeks. So I think it's a pretty good start. And let's talk a little bit more about the process itself. So you built ProfitWell in a lot of way on content. What made you skeptical about letting somebody else write your own post for you?
I think trust is probably the big one. And, trust. Like, I think part of why we ended up working together is because, and I actually think this was super valuable. And I've told a lot of people about this, which is that you offered a lot of valuable insights before we even met on the phone. You offered a lot of feedback on existing posts of mine without coming across as pushy or salesy or asking to get on a phone call. You just became somebody that would comment to me privately or DM me and say, hey, have you thought about this or have you thought about that? That made me trust you more as somebody that wasn't just a, fly by night, LinkedIn expert, because there are several of those, or people who claim to be those. And I think you have to, at my age, I'm older and I've had some success. And so I'm more protective of my personal brand, and therefore trust is really important to me. And so it wasn't until, we developed a somewhat of a relationship that I said, okay, cool. Like, you can have access to my LinkedIn. And I saw your writing. I saw how much you cared. I saw how much you hustled and how energetic you were to help, and it felt genuine. So it was a bit of a risk for me because it could have gone the other way, but ultimately it went in the direction that I think we both are happy about.
I think it's a very valid concern for anybody who's giving their own LinkedIn profile, their own voice at the end of the day for somebody else to write in, right? It's one thing is like, hey, they have your your kind of work capital. They have your entire profile. They could technically DM anybody they wanted from your profile, and their main job is to write posts that give the same feeling to other people. Like you said, the reason you ended up working together was because I gave you value up front. And this is exactly the same thing that we're trying to do in your posts with your audience, so that they end up signing up for a waitlist, signing up for a product, without you having to push them or ask hard. And so if you could tell me, what was the impact when it comes to the conversations that we're having with people? Did you get any inbound DMs from it? Did you get any introductions from it?
One of the things that happened is there was a guy that reached out to me via DM who used to be the CFO of Atari, the video game maker from my childhood, and somebody that actually had an idea that was very similar to what we're working on at Trove. Wasn't working on it, but wanted to chat. Thought he could give me some feedback, and I was compelled enough to take a conversation with him. That conversation, smart guy, lives in Mountain View, California, in the center of Silicon Valley. He's a well-connected guy, it turns out, and he's introduced me to 3 different investors because he's so excited about what we're building and believes so heavily in it. That, to me, would not have happened without the conversations with you, and then ultimately taking you on as somebody as then sort of like, carry on my personal brand and sort of deliver the message that we want to deliver. I've had several of those types of conversations. It's not something that was happening before. And I think that it's a byproduct of the work that you've done, and certainly a one that I welcome. I also get a lot of people that are, thanking me and the team for working on this problem that we're working on, and sharing it with the world because, they're struggling as job seekers or people that can't find work, and, don't have anything to fall back on, and are excited about an alternative version of a LinkedIn, for instance. And so that's really positive, to get messages that, people are excited about this and they're rooting for us like that. That makes us happy. So those types of messages are fantastic. And I don't know if maybe they would have happened if, I continued to post on my own, but again, it wasn't consistent. So I really attribute that to you.
So let's talk about your daily commitment and how much does it actually take from you on a weekly basis? How much time are you currently spending for us to produce 5 high quality posts for you every single week? How much time are you spending reviewing? How much time are you spending communicating or in the content interviews?
I mean, it's probably less than an hour
A week.
Yeah.
And so last one, Peter, what kind of founder should be working with me and who shouldn't be, do you believe?
I think people that ultimately work in tech are a good start. But here's what I'd say: like, the reality is, there's probably a couple ways to build a brand on social, and there's within that there's a couple ways to build a brand on LinkedIn. It's really hard. LinkedIn's really noisy. There's a lot of people that purport to be something that perhaps they're not. It's hard to stand out. It's hard to get your voice heard. It's just there's not a lot of signal. And so if you are a founder or an executive, it's unlikely, if you don't have whether it's a following or a very novel concept that you're talking about that's specific to a sort of small audience, it's really hard to get reach that matters, and to have signal in an otherwise very noisy world. And as such, like, I would certainly recommend times a million working with someone like you that can basically shortcut the process of going from somewhat of an unknown or slightly known to a more well-known, now insert your own word, brand, personality, company, etc., into the fold. It's been 3 weeks and I am significantly more well-known for something now than I was even 3 weeks ago, even though I've been working on this concept for, call it, 8 months. And I suspect it's not exactly linear. It's probably exponential, right? If you hit this right, you continue, it's going to be, the quote is, gradually and then all of a sudden. So anybody that, sort of wants to build a brand, wants to sort of stand out, wants to drive some sort of income, or excuse me, outcome, ultimately income. But in terms of, like, maybe it's leads. For me, it was signups to a product. For other people, it might be sending, meetings. It might be, something of that nature.